Shabbat Shalom. Good evening. Good to be together once more. This is a special evening for us in that our service is a musical Kabbalat Shabbat, and we will be focusing on the songs and the selection from Psalms with which traditionally we welcome Shabbat as the sun sets low in the western sky and as we turn our thoughts to the 24 hours ahead and the way in which we might prepare ourselves to reflect on the week now ended as we focus on those parts of our lives that are most meaningful and special to us. Much of the service as it's designed came from our experiences on our summer road trip, at least those of us who have contributed and shared feedback. So if you remember, there were 4 weeks in the middle of the summer when we didn't prepare our own services, but had rather invited everyone to come with us to various cities. We went to Denver and San Francisco, Chicago and New York, Jerusalem, and shared in the Shabbat celebrations there at a number of different locations in each of those cities, and thought to bring back what we learned there. And so by now, everyone, I joke, has been to their niece's bat mitzvah in Houston, and you've been to a service on the web, on the internet from somewhere else, and you've had an experience. And this is some of those experiences and learnings that we've pulled together. And so we look forward to hearing more from you also as time goes forward and you have experiences online or in other congregations, much like when we used to travel to other cities and go to Shabbat and come back with the service program or a story about the way in which that cantor or rabbi or congregation made us feel so welcome. This evening, our service is full of song, and We'll be using the chat in the same ways that we have and giving you page references if you wish to download the Siddur, the prayer book. We turn now back to preparing for our candle lighting and our celebrating our joining together, Hine Matov, which you may find on page 10. Tom?
I'm sure you know these tunes. It's been gray and it's been cold these last 2 days, and I'm happy to be sharing in the warmth of your faces and your smiles and your eyes as we share in song how good it is to be together. If you've not yet gathered your candles, you can do this while you sing along with me. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matovu manayim 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 shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov yadada yadada yadada. Hine matov yadada yadada yadada. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
Bringing in Shabbat with light on page 2. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
The Torah portion for this week is called Lech Lecha, and it is the charge, Lech Lecha, that God gives to Abram and Sarai, soon to become Abraham and Sarah. Lech Lecha is go forth. It's a imperative, and it's redoubled, and it's suggestive of the beginning of the journey that sets out in this week's Torah portion. And of course, it's a metaphor for the journey of life. In the Torah portion, Lech Lecha, Abraham and Sarah and their household are told, "Go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land that I will show you." Thus their great adventure begins. And above all, it is an inner journey, symbolized by the establishment of a covenant between Abraham and God. And the Torah portion sums it up with the words, "Walk along before me and be pure of heart." We begin a journey at birth, a journey whose destination we discover as we go along. In our journey, we learn, as did Abraham and Sarah, that wonders and trials abound along the way.
On page 12, we begin the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat. We're going to sing Asher Lo Hayam, which is at the bottom of the second paragraph on page 12. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land, which God's hand fashioned. Asher Lo Hayam, Vehu Asahu, Asher From Psalm 96 on page 13, the second paragraph, Yismachu Hashamayim. Yismachu Hashamayim v'tagel ha'aretz yiram hayam u'melo'o. Yismachu Hashamayim v'tagel ha'aretz yiram hayam u'melo'o. Yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, mamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, mamai. Yismachu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz yiram hayam u'melo'o. Yismachu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz yiram hayam u'melo'o. Yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, mamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, mamai, yamamai mai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, mamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamamai mamai, yamai mai, mai.
A man was on a journey that took him through a forest. There he lost his way. After several days of wandering alone, he encountered another person. To this one he appealed, "Can you show me the way out of this forest?" The other replied, "I too have lost my way. Each path I have taken has been wrong, but at least I can share which paths we should not take. Let us then search for our way out together."
Psalm 97 at the bottom of page 14. Or Zarua. Or Zarua la tzadik. Or Zarua la tzadik. Uli Yisrael lev, Uli Yisrael lev, Uli Yisrael lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik. Or Zarua la tzadik. Uli Yisrael lev, Uli Yisrael lev, Uli Yisrael lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik. Or Zarua la tzadik. Uli Yisrael lev, Uli Yisrael lev, Uli Yisrael lev simcha. Or Zarua la tzadik. Or Zarua la tzadik. Uli Yisrael lev, Uli Yisrael lev, Uli Yisrael lev simcha.
Share with you a poem by the poet Ruth Brin. No one ever told me the coming of the Messiah could be an inward thing. No one ever told me a change of heart might be as quiet as new fallen snow. No one ever told me that redemption was as simple as springtime and as wonderful as birds returning after a long winter, rose-breasted grosbeaks singing in the swaying branches of a newly budded tree. No one ever told me that salvation might be like a fresh spring wind, blowing away the dried, withered leaves of another year, carrying the scent of flowers, the promise of fruition. What I found for myself, I try to tell you. Redemption and salvation are very near, and the taste of them is in the world that God created and has laid before us.
From Psalm 98, Zamru Ladonai Bechinor on page 16.
And on the next page from Psalm 99, it's verse 9. It's the last sentence of the page. Romamu, you did such a good job with your keys last week. I want to give you another chance to hear lots more of them today. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu l'har kodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu l'har kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu. Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu l'har kodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu l'har kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu. Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu l'har kodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu l'har kodsho.
The sixth of the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat is Psalm 29, and we'll do the very ending of that, Adonai Oz, on the bottom of page 19. And the fact that there are 6 of them is definitely on purpose. Adonai Oz, le'amo yitain Adonai yevarech et amo. Adonai Oz, le'amo yitain Adonai yevarech et amo. Shalom. 6 days a week. We make our way through, and then we get to day number 7, which is Shabbat. So we've gone through 6 Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat, and we have made our way to Lecha Dodi, which is on page 20. And as a treat, we're going to do the entire thing. Lecha Dodi is about the beauty of Shabbat, but it's also about the resilience and optimism of our people. This week, we read from Lech Lecha. Abraham is looking forward. In Lecha Dodi, a lot of the text is about Jerusalem and about redemption, and some of the text is taken from the book of Isaiah, from the consolation readings that we actually read between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah. So in Lecha Dodi, we are welcoming Shabbat, we are thinking about redemption, and we are looking forward.
פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה בראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבת בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, יללה, 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 בני שבת לקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, יללה, 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 בני שבת לקבלה.
Ooh, so having greeted Shabbat with 6 Psalms and then with Lecha Dodi, it's time to greet each other. And so you can use the chat if you want to take a moment to unmute and say hello. We wish each other a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
Shalom. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom.
John Spear.
Shalom.
Oh,
Hello.
42 people. How about that?
Hi, John.
42 people, yeah.
Yeah.
Jay,
How's Tim doing?
Hanging in there.
good. He's in square number 9.
All right.
Oh, there they are.
Hi,
Shabbat
Peter.
Shalom to all.
Peter.
Hi.
Good Shabbos.
Hi, Linda.
I hear
Hi,
Nancy, I don't
Andrew.
see you.
Hi, Tim.
Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, buddy.
Hi.
That's me.
Shalom.
Buddy.
Okay.
Great.
I
We're going to
agree.
make time at the end as well. So continue to use the chat, continue to wave, wink, share with each other, and we continue with Molly on page 22.
Psalm 92 is the special psalm for Shabbat. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I want to share with you a story by way of a concept picking up on the Torah portion. That is to say, we began our service by introducing the idea or the fact that we are now in a portion of the Torah, our third, called Lech Lecha, which is the portion in which Abraham receives the charge to leave all that he knows and to set off on his journey towards ultimately the promised land, the land that God will show them, he and his wife Sarah, as well as obviously an inner journey because it mirrors the fact that each of us is on a life's journey. parking lot that for a moment, this idea of a journey or moving from place to place with the rabbinic concept called shinui makom. Shinui makom means moving one's place, but it's a legal concept that the rabbis were concerned with in the context of half you began to eat a meal, you said the blessing as you began to eat, and then you moved from one place to another place. You went from one room to another room, or you left your home and went outside, or you were on a journey. If you move from place to place, if you shinui makom, you change your place, does it necessitate a separate blessing? Is it as if you have interrupted your meal and then you need to say the blessing again before resuming your eating? And it's a rather arcane kind of twist. The rabbis are concerned a lot about demarcating time and place and distinguishing one act from another. But in time, this idea of shinui makom, being that change of a place, being a legal concept, becomes a bit more metaphoric. And the rabbis in the Talmud introduced the idea that shinui makom, shinui mazal. If you change your place, you may change your luck, or you may change your fortune. I'd like to translate a little bit differently, and in a political realm, it works well if you think about place as position and fortune as perspective. If you change your position, perhaps you change your perspective. When you have a different experience or you are introduced to something completely unknown to you, and there is then no unknowing that new discovery, you may find that everything about the future looks different. Your perspective is changed for your position being other. Here's the story. It's a story about the Baal Shem Tov, who is understood to be the founder of Hasidic Judaism. And the Baal Shem Tov, which means the master or the owner of a good name, so highly regarded was he, sometimes is referred to by the acronym the Besht, B-S-H-T, Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was the founder of Hasidic Judaism, the Besht, as he was known, and many of the Baal Shem Tov's ways were uniquely his own. Understandably, much of what the Baal Shem Tov suggested or encouraged or even demanded of others might have seemed strange to an outsider. But to the Baal Shem Tov's constant companion, a man named Reb Zev Wolf, the Besht's actions were invariably insightful and far-reaching, even if it took years for some people to appreciate them. Reb Zev Wolf knew that when the Baal Shem Tov spoke, though it might not at first appear to be so, in the end, all would be for the best. So one day, Reb Zev Wolf accompanied the Besht on a visit to a certain village to see a certain Jew. The impoverished villager welcomed the two into his home. "I must have a donation of 18 rubles, said the Baal Shem Tov. The poor man whom they were visiting did not have this large a sum. But considering that it was the Besht making the request, the villager took some of his furniture and his cow and sold them and gave the Besht 18 rubles. His companion, Reb Zev Wolf, looked on silently as the Baal Shem Tov took the poor man's money and then departed. Several days later, the villager's rent came due, but he could not produce the sum and he was evicted by his landlord. The villager, seeing no future for himself in this small village, decided to try his luck elsewhere. And so it was that he found himself in a different village, in a tiny hut with a different landlord. In time, by selling a few more of his possessions, the villager managed to buy himself a new cow. And the cow provided the Jew with his sole source of income. He sold the milk and eked out a meager living. Sometime later, the man's landlord's cow became sick and her milk was unusable. One of the landlord's servants knew of the new tenant, the Jew, and quickly went to the villager and bought from him milk for the landlord. When the landlord was served the milk, he commented, "This milk is of superior quality to that which I have been drinking. Tell the owner that I will pay handsomely for the privilege of being his only customer." The incident turned the tide of the fortunes for the villager. Thereafter, each day he delivered milk to the landlord's home, and each day the landlord commented on the quality of the milk and the dairy products derived from it. He came to grow fond of the Jew as well and began to consult with him about his business, slowly turning over to him many responsibilities. The landlord trusted him implicitly with all things and appreciated the Jew's honesty, reliability, and faithful service. The landlord's relationship and bond with this Jewish villager became so deep that being childless, he transferred ownership of all the land of the village and the nearby city to the Jew. Feeling that now everything was in good hands, the landlord took leave and went abroad after having given the Jew legal title to the entire area. A few years later, the Baal Shem Tov's old disciple and companion, Reb Zev Wolf, came to the same village in which this now wealthy Jew lived. Reb Zev Wolf was collecting money on behalf of Jewish prisoners and captives and had been doing so for some time. By the time Reb Zev Wolf came to the village, he had collected all but 300 rubles of the sum that the Baal Shem Tov had designated for him. Upon meeting with the village rabbi, Zev Wolf was surprised to see the rabbi was festively attired, and so he inquired as to his formal dress. Replied the local cleric, "I am going together with the town's dignitaries to greet the largest landholder of the city. Why don't you come along with us? He is a Jew, and he will probably be most willing to contribute to your cause." And so indeed, Zev Wolf accompanied the rabbi and his companions. The landlord greeted the local delegation warmly, paying special attention to the newcomer, Reb Zev Wolf. After a little while, the village landlord took Reb Zev Wolf aside. "Do you not remember me?" he asked. Reb Zev Wolf was unable to place the wealthy man's face. And so the Jew, who had once been all but impoverished by the demand that he produced for the Baal Shem Tov a sum of 18 rubles, now he went on to recall the story of his change of fortune for Reb Zev Wolf. And then he casually took out 300 rubles and turned the sum over to Zev Wolf. It was only upon returning to the Baal Shem Tov and relating to him what had transpired that Reb Zev Wolf understood the entire story. The last 300 rubles were donated by the village Jew whom you once asked for a donation of 18 rubles. Today he is a wealthy man. And so now let me tell you why I extracted that large sum from him when the circumstances he had were so difficult, explained the Baal Shem Tov. You see, a change of fortune was awaiting him in the future, but not in the place that he was. To realize his future fortune, it was necessary for him to come to the end of his rope so that he could do no other than be forced to leave the place he was in and to settle elsewhere. And that is exactly what happened. The rest you already know. And so it is with each of us. Shinui makom, shinui mazal. When we change our portion, our position, our place, we change our perspective and our fortune and all the future. Shabbat Shalom. We turn back now as we prepare to share the Misha Berach, a prayer of healing and hope. We have this week a considerable list of those for whom we offer this prayer of healing, hope, renewal, and peace. And should you wish to add names for us to read aloud to those that we already are aware of, invite you to add those names into the chat. Our text is found on page 253, should you wish to follow along in the prayer books. We turn our thoughts now to all those in need of healing and comfort and peace. We think now of Millard Balloon and Alex Botkin, Olivia Burton and Georgia Davidson, Rabbi Lucy Dinner, David Dornberg, Jacob Eisenfeld, Peter and Tim Flokos, Barb Hepner, Naum Kaplan, Lee Kramer, Miranda Larson and Judith Levison, Carolyn McDowell, Robert Marcus, Kristen Wood Meyer, Millie Morey and Lizzie Newell, Lev Podorovsky and Ruth Rubenstein, Pat Shore, Arnie Silverman, Dick Simon, Jackie Student, Joan Weiss, Arlene Wolk, Chana Bat Abraham Vasara. We add as well Ellen, Joel Berg, Jeff Brock, Steve Woods, Marsha Kaplan, Sean Nimmo, Piers Haggard. Are there other names to share before we continue? Okay, we continue with Misha Berach.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu the source of strength, who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yisheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And we gently pivot to Kaddish, as we turn our thoughts to those whose memories give meaning to our lives. Those taken from our midst, but not our hearts in these most recent days, and those the anniversary of whose passing we mark with the yahrzeit this week. Once more, do I invite you, should you wish to have a name read aloud, to share it in the chat. As we turn our thoughts now to the memories of Nancy Berkowitz, Marjorie Champion, Keith Cox, Patty Espinoza Demko, Carla Phillip, Sylvia Furman, Marcia Lucente, Claire G. Morris, Kenneth Phillips, Bessie Broido Santoro, Shirley Tucker, Dr. Joyce Wallace, Victoria Warren. We remember also for yahrzeit, Mildred Kaplan, Marion C. Cohen, Edith Donnenberg, Bernard Furman, Israel Miller, Boris Mogilevsky, Gail Ryev, Alex Edward Seed, and Richard Bill Weisberger. Father of Marvin Solomani. There are other names people wish to share. We joined together the text for our Kaddish on page 294. And as you may be able in body or spirit, do I invite you to rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah,
Amen.
v'alma divrach kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Mavarach Le'olam Olmei Olmaya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach, Yitba'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar V'yitalei V'yitalal, Shmei D'Kudsha Richu, Le'ela Min Kol Berchata V'shirata, Tushbachata V'nechamata, Da'amiran B'alma V'imru.
Amen.
Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu V'kol Yisrael, Imru, Amen. Osei Shalom Bimramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'kol Yisrael, Imru, Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all the world. We say together, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Olivia here. I'm going to share some announcements about our week to come. Our Shabbat morning service is tomorrow at 10:30. After both our evening and morning service, we have our virtual oneg here in the same Zoom room, so everyone can feel free to stick around and kibitz for a while. Tomorrow morning, wake up a little early, 9 a.m., and tune in for our Talmud study. I'm teaching Gemara Ghosts. I'm going to invite some ancient spirits from beyond the grave to teach us how the rabbis of the Talmud envisioned life after death. I think it's very fascinating, and if you've never heard a Jewish ghost story before, this is a great place to start. The 85th annual Solomon B. Freehoff book and author series starts this Thursday. This year is dedicated to the memory of Violet Marcus. And the first session, Rabbi Bisno will be reviewing Born a Crime by Trevor Noah of The Daily Show. This is going to be Thursdays at 7:30 for a few sessions, and then it'll be a Monday morning program. But you'll have all of that information. The same link will be for all events, and all links are in your Shalomogram, which you should receive Monday morning. And if you're not, give me a message and we'll get you connected. It's the first week of the month again, which means we have Talmud class with Rabbi Tuckman at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, and the Christian-Jewish Dialogue Thursday at noon. Hope that you'll be able to tune in for one or both. Fascinating conversations await. Our Share the Warmth Drive, our community outreach and social action committee's first major project, is gathering warm weather clothing for donating to our Pursuer of Peace Award recipient Giselle Fetterman's Free Store in Braddock. So the big drop-off day is this Sunday, November 1st. And while you're dropping off warm weather clothing, if you haven't brought back your High Holiday Prayer book, please do. And the last thing I have to say, this is the last time you'll see this slide on a Friday evening for a little bit at least. I feel like we're always in election season, but we do at least have an election day on Tuesday. It's this coming Tuesday, November 3rd. Send in your mail-in ballot now or make a plan to vote in person. You can learn so much more at votespa.com. And we just learned about a really helpful voter hotline, which we'll put the number in the chat if you're having additional questions about voting. And I gotta say, plan some self-care time. All reports I've heard say that we are not going to know the actual results on Tuesday night. And just take some time to breathe and be gentle. Stay hydrated out there. It's gonna be a hard week. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I welcome our President Karen Breen to share the report from the board.
Hi, thank you, Olivia. I wanted to mention that in the coming weeks, months, when you have an opportunity to be at Temple, you will find that we have a new security company. We're very pleased to welcome Pal American. I know that we have had some of you out there, lots of people have had great relationships with the staff from EDT, but we found that this other company is able to offer us a little more of what we need, and we're happy to welcome Pal American. I wanted to mention that November 3rd, which is Election Day, of course, finds Rodef as one of the polling places. We're going to have extra security that day at Rodef, and we are encouraging our staff to not be present. Frankly, the preschool will not be in session and Falk will not be in session. We just, as you know, constantly are balancing the demands of keeping people safe with being a welcoming place. And we feel it's really best. And so I ask any of you to make sure and stay safe on Election Day. But if you don't need to be at Rodef to vote, we look forward to not seeing you on November 3rd there. That's all the news right now. There's a lot going on at the board, and I welcome the opportunity each Friday night to be able to give you a briefing. Thanks very much, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Well, we've greeted the Shabbat bride, and so we conclude by greeting the angels among us. Shalom Aleichem. If you're still where you were for Kaddish, page 323 will be closer for you. If you're already ready for Kiddush, then it's on page 24. Shalom Aleichem, Alechei Asharet, Noachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidkem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Kiddush is on page 5. We lift our cups. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho v'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'asei bereshit, hu yom techila lemikrai kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'chai hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom. You can unmute.